Hey guys, welcome to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Joe Klemczewski with Dr. Kori Propst, our health psychologist. And today we're going to talk about, Kori, what I have termed structured flexibility, which is probably not the coolest, sexiest, catchiest name, structured flexibility.
Yeah.
But to me, I think the greatest metaphor that has resonated with people is that structure, like if you're building a foundation or a wall, something that's going to give you support, structure is like bricks. We need structure. And mortar, you need that. That's the flexibility that can guide exactly where the balance is and keep everything in line. And so in a day when a lot of people regarding nutrition want either or, like we'll fight, we'll pick a side. No, I need rigid meal plans. No, I want ultimate flexibility and I just want to wing it. You've got a new way of describing this that I think is probably better. And so let's hear it.
Well, so you just made me think of Abraham Maslow, actually, who he has these 19 characteristics of self-actualizing people. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but the 19th one is this resolution of dichotomies. So a self-actualized person doesn't get caught up in it's either this way or that way. Like, we can operate in the gray and in the middle and actually will function much better when we do. At the same time, this structure that we talk about can involve some very strict or rigid rules. The difference is, because I think when a lot of people hear that rules immediately like contracts me. Like I automatically feel deprived because I have a rule for myself that, like, I only eat Cliff Bars when I'm riding my bike, for example. That's the only time that Cliff Bars work for me. Any other time, protein bars, you will not find me eating them because they don't serve me well. They create cravings and I just want more sweet. They don't work. So the structure.
So you created a rule.
I did.
Because it works for you. It's not something to ruin your life or constrain you, but it's there to help you.
Absolutely. I feel like I have more control. I feel like I have a sense of agency. I feel like I have more consistency in my life with this rule. I feel like I'm taking care of myself with this rule. I feel more functional in my life with this rule. So it's like an addict who says, I don't do drugs or I don't drink. I'm not the type of person who does that. I only eat Cliff Bars when I ride my bike. Other people might look at that and be like, that's really inflexible and rigid. And you know what? If it doesn't work for you, totally fine. Look at your own life and decide what's going to be functional. I look at structure, Joe, as we can set rules that are like always rules. We can set rules that are never rules, or we can set rules that are like sometimes conditional rules. For example, I never drink wine. I don't like it. I don't want it. It's not a part of my life. I don't care about it. I'd never drink wine. I'm never tempted by it. But here's the thing too. Maybe we do feel a sense of temptation around it, but when we have it, it leads to all sorts of problems in our lives. You can't have, if you hear yourself say like, I can never have just one glass. Okay, that's dysfunctional then. Why have that first glass then in the first place? You are an adult. You can set the rule for yourself to never have wine.
And I do think for somebody who is, if there is an issue, if you know that's an issue with you, I'm gonna jump on this exact example because it's kind of a funny one to me. My wife also, for almost 50 years, has never had a drop of alcohol because she said, I just don't want it, don't want to be tempted by it. She's not even in a family that has a background of alcoholism.
Sure.
She just heard, she's kind of a black and white, rule-oriented person that, it can lead to problems, so I'm just not going to do it. But now that we have 3 children over the age of 21 and they're like, oh, having a beer, a glass of wine, a cocktail, now she feels kind of left out. So now, in last year, it's like, well, I'll take a sip, and I'll take a sip of this, and I'll take a sip of this. Now she has a little bit of wine almost every night, because, she's convinced they're of the health value, the antioxidants, the ounce of alcohol. And so now she's adopted it. After 50 years, it was a rule of none. Now it's a rule of just 1 or 2 ounces a night, and not even every night, but when we have a bottle open. So now it's a new rule, but it's completely different than the old rule.
Okay, well, so you make a great point. Rules can be changed, guys. They're not like set in stone. They're not built in the foundation of, what you said of this house. Like, they can be unearthed and changed based on the circumstances and the situation. But again, are the rules functional and do they work for you? That's what's most important. And the second thing that I noticed, Joe, in your story is that she set a rule for herself without any education around it. She just adopted it based on what someone else said she should do, or what someone else said would be appropriate. And whenever we set rules like that, for the most part, they are not going to work in our lives very well.
I was going to go to the exact same place, because
we're not taking any responsibility.
Right. Yeah, and that goes back to our need for autonomy. If we feel like people are encumbering us with rules, then we're going to eventually want to break out of that prison. And so, in both of these situations, they were rules that she adopted, and no one was going to change. No matter how many times I would say, "Hey, just try this or this," she was like, "Nope, you're not going to tell me what to do. This is my rule."
There's part of me that really respects that. Like,
absolutely.
I love that. Like, no, this doesn't feel good to me. I'm not interested. Don't try to convince me otherwise. Yeah.
And that's what I think is a core component behind this is rules and boundaries and restrictions shouldn't be a value judgment. It's not good or bad. It's if it works for you, if it doesn't, hurt your ability to move forward or to reach the goal that you're creating the rule for, then fantastic. But to your point, I think there should be a self-evaluation, a thought process that, is this really a good rule? Are there alternative rules? Are there tangents to this I should be aware of? And, don't just adopt a rule because it sounds good.
Yes.
Think through it.
So I would ask, like, how does this create forward momentum towards optimal well-being in my life? And if we can't say that it does, then is it a viable rule? The other thing that I would consider too is, some rules can feel someone might look at my rule and say, wow, that's incredibly depriving. But when I look at that rule, I think about all the things I'm depriving of myself by not following it. So if I have wine, this has nothing to do with me being an alcoholic. Like,
maybe the whole podcast is centered around wine now.
I actually experience not awesome physical ramifications of having wine outside of like a buzz. It's like I have to go to the doctor sort of a thing or get medication. So it's not worth it. Like, so like my life becomes very deprived in many ways when I have it. So
you had a catchy way of describing this before we started. Do you remember what that was about? Rules, no rules, or something like that? It was very Fight Clubbish.
I think maybe we were talking about how it depends on where the rule lands on a continuum. If it's on the one end of, the functional part of the character strength that it's connected to, or whether it's on the dysfunctional end of the character strength.
Yeah, we had a phrase that I thought could replace structured flexibility, and now I forget. We'll think of it again. Yeah.
When does control get out of control? I don't know.
Oh, maybe that was it. Yeah, that was it, I think. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. When control gets out of control. Like control is good if you're in control, but control can get out of control. You can be out of control with too much control.
Yes.
Okay, we're
getting overuse control.
Now it's getting kind of Dr. Seussish. We should just stop there.
Let's stop here.
All right. Thank you, Kori. And it's a great point. I think structure and flexibility, control, rules, we have to have some level, but it's great for us to exert it when we want it, when it helps us. So Kori, excellent information. Look forward to chatting with you again in the next episode. And for you guys watching and listening, thanks as always. And we'll see you next time in the Life Mastery Podcast.
Thanks, guys.